So no matter what type of video you create, I can guarantee you at some point you'll want to blur out or pixelate some part of it. So that's what we're going to be doing today, learning how to do that. We're going to do a couple of simple ones, and then we're going to do a little bit more of a complicated one. So lots of things to learn and lots of techniques to get under our belt. So let's get started. Okay, so let's start by importing a clip and getting it on our timeline. Now that we've got it on the timeline, we just need to go to our color page and we can get started. Now that we're on the color page, we need to make sure that the node panel is visible. If it isn't already, you just hit the node button here and the node panel will appear. Now we could attach our effect directly to this node, but for this example, I'm going to create a new serial node to attach my blur to. It's going to give you a little bit more flexibility going forward, and it's generally a better idea. So let's do that. Let's add ourselves a new serial node. Next, make sure that your new node is selected, and we need to open the Windows panel. Now what we're going to do is we're going to pick a shape to create a mask. Now because it's a face, and it's generally sort of round shape, the round mask icon is going to be the one we're going to use. Let's click on that. And then what you'll see is a new circle template placed on the screen for us. And now it's a very simple process of just adjusting the size so that it only covers the area that we want to actually blur or pixelate. So let's do that. We can just make some fine adjustments. Now one thing you may want to adjust and play around with is this red line here. This is sort of like the outside blur, the soft blur edge. But again, it's an experimental thing, so try out what works for you in your clip. But generally the idea is just encapsulate the area with the mask. So now that we've got the area mask that we want to work with, we need to open up the tracking panel. Now we've got some different controls here to allow Davinci to work. Now the one we want to switch off for this example is the 3D. And if we leave 3D on, it will overcomplicate it and we will probably get some very strange effects out of it. The things we don't want. So let's turn that off. And what we need to do now is simply get Davinci to track forwards and backwards through our clip to make sure that it's got all the key points and it's masking that area all the way. So we just hit this forward and back tracking marker here and let it do its thing. Now we need to open up the effects panel and we're going to look for mosaic blur. So once we find it, and just drag it on top of your node. So now that we've got the mosaic blur in place, all it is a question now of dialing in the settings that you like best or fit with the effect that you're trying to get. So let's dial in a few different examples and we'll see which one we like. So that one looks okay to me. I'm happy with that. And then finally, let's hit the play button and test it out. Okay, so what about if you want to blur out two different elements in the same scene? Very simple. It's the same process again. First, we need to add an extra serial node. So let's do that. Again, click on the window and pick the type of icon we want to use to create our mask. Again, it's going to be a circle because it's a head. Get it to fit. Make sure you're happy that the size is correct. And then hit the tracking forwards and back button. Now I always use the tracking forward and back button because I'm not very organized and sometimes I'm in the middle of the clip, I'm at the end of the clip. It doesn't really matter. Okay, so now that we've got our tracking done and we're happy with that, just to show you a different way of doing it, what we're going to do this time is we're going to add a blur to the effect. So the first mask we created a pixelating or mosaic blur. This time we're just going to use the blur controls. Very simple. We go to the blur panel and we can use these sliders to adjust how much blur we want on this mask. Okay, so that looks about right to me. Happy with that. And we can test it out. And there you go. We've got two different blur effects working on the same clip. Okay, so up to now we've been using pretty straightforward, easy clips to work on. The tracking has been quite straightforward and we've had no real problems. In this final example, what we're going to do is use a clip that is a little bit more tricky to work with. The person we want to pixelate doesn't come into frame straight away. So we're going to look at how we can actually adjust the tracking size mid-frame or mid-clip. Now, you could stop this being a problem in the first place by cutting your clip down so it only includes the frames that you want to pixelate. But for an example, and to show you how you can do it, we are going to use something a little bit more complicated, possibly more real world, to show you how to do it. So let's get started. So let's start by importing our second clip onto our timeline, exactly the same as we did before. So now we've got it on our timeline. You'll notice this one has an audio as well, so we need to get rid of that. So let's right click on our clip. Now right at the bottom of the pop-up menu, you'll see an option which says link clips. Just click on that. This will break the link between our video and audio segments of our clip. And then finally, just click on the audio part and then hit the backspace on your keyboard. And then that part will disappear from the timeline. Now open up the color panel. There may be a short delay before both clips appear. Once they do, click on the second one and then we can start to add our edit. So the first steps are the same as what we've already done. We're going to use the Windows panel to pick ourselves a circle mask and get it over the area that we want to actually pixelate. So we can do that first. Next, we're going to use the tracking panel to track backwards and forwards. Don't forget to uncheck the 3D option if it's not already unchecked. So it hasn't done a bad job, and you can see as we scrub backwards and forwards, the mask appears over the guy's shoulder. So it's trying to, or assuming that the area we were masking is there. But obviously in the real world, the shoulder's in the way. So what we're going to do is we're going to actually change our settings and we're going to move backwards and forwards at a frame level and adjust our mask size. Now, if we didn't do this, what would happen when we applied our mosaic blur or pixelation? We'd pixelate the guy's shoulder, which would look a bit strange and not very professional. Okay, so let's start by changing our tracking mode from clip to frame. And then it's a very simple process of just moving your playhead backwards and forwards through your clip, looking for the points where your mask doesn't want to be a particular size. So, for instance, while the guy is being obscured by the shoulder, you would make the mask very small, almost indistinguishable. So let's do that now. Now we'll speed this up slightly because, as I say, you need to go backwards and forwards, fine adjusting, but I hope you get the idea. Now once you're happy with your mask and you've played it a few times and you know it's actually over the area you want only, then it's a question of what we've already done before. We're just going to drag the mosaic blur over the top and adjust it to the right settings that we prefer for our video. Once we've done that, then we just play and then we see what we got. If everything goes correct, then we're only going to be pixelating the guy's face and not the shoulder that's obscuring him as he comes into shot. And that looks pretty good to me. Obviously, if you're doing it yourself, you may spend a little bit more time making some fine adjustments because that's not perfect, but it's good enough for this demo, I think. Okay, so we're done. I hope you found that really interesting. We've covered quite a few different things here. We've looked at tracking, we've looked at adjusting the tracking size, and we looked at how we can use the frame setting to adjust our tracker to take into account, in our example, the guy coming into view. So lots of things covered, lots of techniques you can use in other areas. So I hope you found it really useful, and I hope to see you very soon. If you have any comments, please leave them. Always love to read them. And please hit the notify and subscribe. I really appreciate it. And I look forward to seeing you very soon.